The time is just gone 9:30 as we continue with the broadcast this morning, and we are now focusing on Ethiopia, where a lot is taking place. Where we've seen a protest take place in Ethiopia at the Grand Mosque at the Anwar Masjid, and this is as a result of the demolition of mosques around the capital. It has led to a number of deaths, sadly, and what the government is saying this is part of an urban planning project, and this has clearly sparked a lot of anger amongst Ethiopian Muslims. And to tell us more, we are joined by none other than Sister Ayesha Kajee. Sister Ayesha, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes,
Brother Inayat, I must say up front that, there's very little that we can factually prove about what's happening in Ethiopia. I've been trying over the last couple of weeks to contact colleagues there, and I'm getting very little response. I have had a response from a colleague in Kenya, but even she is
yes, I think Aisha, perhaps we are breaking up slightly. Sorry. Yeah, if I know, if possible, if we could just possibly maybe do it on audio, because I think we are having a bit of a problem with bandwidth and those things. So if maybe if you could switch off the camera, and we'll do it actually on audio this morning.
Is that better?
Yes, much better, much better. You may continue. You may continue.
Okay, it's also because we have a power outage in this area since 2 a.m. last night, so it's likely that's why the connections are poor. I apologize for that.
Yes, so you were talking about trying to get to the bottom of this, and at this point in time, what you mentioned that it's very difficult to say with certainty as to what is actually playing out in Ethiopia.
I've tried to contact various friends there, people who are working, for example, at the African Union, journalists that I've trained in the past, etc. And there's just been very little response on this issue. Nobody seems to know exactly what's going on. They do confirm that a couple of mosques have been demolished. But also, it also appears that everybody's very afraid to talk. As you may know, Brother Inayat, Ethiopia is a country, where press freedom is under threat and is monitored very closely by these state agencies. So what we do know is that a few mosques on the outskirts of the capital, Addis Ababa, have been demolished, allegedly to make way for new urban expansion, for new development. But of course, the worshippers at those mosques, the communities that those mosques serve, have been angry. They've posted images on social media. You've probably seen the TikTok and Instagram reels that have gone viral. And last Friday, there was a large protest by tens of thousands of worshippers at the Anwar Mosque in Addis Ababa, which is the masjid that is essentially the Jummah masjid of the capital, where everybody goes to pray their Jummah Salah and, of course, their daily Salah as well. And at this protest on Friday, we know that at least 114 people were killed. The state has confirmed that 3 people died, and that up to 65 security personnel, that could be army personnel, could be police personnel, were injured. But on social media, there are claims that at least 16 have died. So as I said, it's very, very difficult to get to the bottom of this without having somebody in the country that is willing to come and speak publicly. But of course, the reluctance to do so is because of suppression of the press in Ethiopia at the moment.
Yes, but we've seen internationally this has become a major issue, has become a major talking point, to the extent that we've even seen the Council of Islamic Relations in the United States of America calling on the Biden administration to act on these mosque demolitions. So what we can do is, I'm sure we can confirm that these demolitions are taking place.
Confirmation that demolitions have occurred. What there isn't confirmation of is the exact number of people killed and injured at the protest on Friday, and what the plans are with regard to the Ethiopian state's demolition of these mosques, whether there are plans for more masjids to be demolished. There seems to be total silence on that. Even the demolitions that did occur apparently occurred without any or much notice to the trustees of the masjid, the people who look after the masjid, etc. So the mosques that we know have been demolished, there was no advance warning of that, or very little advance warning of that. And that raises the question of what the agenda of the Ethiopian state might be, given that this has happened in relative at relative speed and with very little warning. The allegation that this is for urban development, again, very few people seem to have any idea what the plans are for the spaces where these mosques were.
Well, definitely, Aisha. And also, I think what is important to understand is looking at the potential of fueling further problems in Ethiopia. We know what has been playing out in the Tigray region, and this has had disastrous consequences for the country. But in terms of fueling an added problem in the form of Islamophobia.
Uh-huh. Absolutely. This is a country that's already dealing with conflict, as you said, in the Tigray region. It is also a country where we did see, anti-Muslim attacks about a year ago in April last year. So, it may be that this is going to inflame tensions between Muslims and others in the country, whether those are Orthodox Ethiopian Christians or members of other religions. There are other smaller animist religions in Ethiopia as well. And of course, there are a few Jews there as well, but there are not a large population. So, it's an important site of potential conflict that needs to be contained right now. And in order to do that, the Ethiopian government needs to come clean and say what its plans for the areas where these mosques were demolished are, and why the Muslim community was not allowed the opportunity to prepare for these if it was inevitable that these mosques would be demolished, and to rehouse their masajid elsewhere.
Aisha, is there an opportunity for the AU to get involved, to get to the bottom of this? Because, as you mentioned, things are very, very sketchy. Press freedom is a major issue in Ethiopia. And in the absence of getting clarity on what the intention of the Ethiopian authorities are by demolishing these mosques, surely the AU needs to get involved.
Yes, absolutely. The AU should be getting involved. The AU's founding principles allow for freedom of religion in all of its member countries. However, the AU, as we know, is based in Addis Ababa, and so there may well be reluctance on the part of the AU to get involved unless they can get more clarity on what's happening. I've been trying, as I said at the beginning of this interview, to contact certain colleagues at the AU what is going on with regard to the masjid demolitions. But thus far, I've had no response whatsoever. And there's been certainly no outright condemnation by the AU of these events in Ethiopia. There's also been very, very little mainstream media coverage. It is as though nobody is willing to talk about this. And that in itself should be of concern to the Muslim community and the Muslim Ummah worldwide, indeed.
Well, now that obviously we've raised the issue, and hopefully, I think even with us here locally, I think possibly there may be a case where a number of organizations, I mentioned the Council of Islamic Relations in America, making approaches to Biden. Surely we have got the capacity, we've got our own bodies here, we've got our own organizations, our ulama bodies, and perhaps to raise this issue not only with the South African government but with the Ethiopian embassy here in South Africa.
That we should be demanding answers. We should also be putting pressure on our leaders to raise this issue in the AU, and Muslims in East Africa should be putting, the pressure on their leaders to raise this issue in the East African community as well, which is the regional bloc for East Africa. So we should be basically coordinating our efforts at a national level and then encouraging more solidarity with Ethiopian Muslims at the regional and continental levels, and of course the international level as well, the global level as well.
Well, I see a comment come through on the screen. Nazima Taladia writes about the Zionists being very active in Ethiopia. I'm not too sure if there's a link, Aisha.
Yes, well, as I mentioned earlier, there are Ethiopian Jews. Many of them emigrated to Israel in the sort of latter part of the last millennium and the early part of this millennium. Many of them do live in Israel. Or in what we would call Palestine, but of course they go there as Jewish people, so they believe that they are Israeli citizens. However, one thing my visit to Palestine recently has shown me is that even though the Zionists are active in Ethiopia and are actively recruiting, have in the past certainly actively recruited Ethiopian citizens to become Israeli, and of course to serve in the army, to participate in agriculture and manufacturing industries there, etc. From the ground, I can tell you that there is a degree of discrimination against Black Jews in Israel, which is, of course, not surprising to us as Muslims because we know of the apartheid that they impose on Palestinians. So while there is a degree of Zionism very active on the ground in Ethiopia, it has traditionally been targeted at the Jewish population and some of the more Orthodox Christians who also support this idea that their Messiah will return in Jerusalem and therefore want to visit, as tourists want to visit Israel. So there is that lobby for sure in Ethiopia, and there are ties between the Ethiopian government and Israel and cooperation on certain issues as well.
Well, Aisha, let's leave it at that for now, but we certainly will follow developments, and I'm sure at some point in time you will get a lot more clarity as you make contact with the people that you want to make contact. So hopefully we will get a lot more clarity. But for now, we thank you. We say Jazakallah for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, and just on that note, I see Nazima Taladia writes, they mainly anti-Islam and they send young men to join the IDF to Palestine to kill Palestinians. The Ethiopians are extremely cruel towards the Palestinians, but the Jewish Zionists are anti-black. Well, that's Jazakallah for that, Nazima, for your comments. And the time is just gone, 9:43. We're going to go for a break. We come back. It's time for Hajj Diaries 2023.